Have you ever wondered when you should be taking your profits on Harmony One? Well, in today's video, I'm going to be trying to show you where to potentially be thinking about taking profits, where you might want to start thinking a market is overheating and you want to kind of take your profit out of the market, specifically for the Harmony One protocol. Now, this video is going to be trying to time the market. It's going to be trying to kind of give you an idea as to where the peak will be in terms of time. This is not an exact science and is open to a little bit of room of error, but it gives you a bit of an idea as to kind of the logic that flows into it. So as I get into today's video, if you do find it useful and informative, smash that like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe, and let's jump down into the charts and take a look at what's going on with Harmony One. Okay, so in order for us to understand the market in a little bit more detail, we are going to take a look at a couple of different scenarios. Okay, so Harmony One has definitely been a very interesting project over the last few years through the bear market, the previous bull market, and there's actually a couple of different things that we need to kind of think about when we're trying to time the market. So what we're going to do is we're going to first of all take a look at Bitcoin. We'll jump over to the Bitcoin chart and we'll kind of review what goes on with BTC during bullish times and bearish times across its entire life cycle so far, and it'll give you a bit of an idea as to kind of one of the scenarios that can unfold. Okay, so let's start things off with Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin's usually the market leader, right? When Bitcoin peaks, you tend to find one of two scenarios unfold. One, you'll find that money rolls out of Bitcoin and goes into altcoins, right? And there's some clear examples of this back in 2017. And then sometimes on the other side of the argument, you have everything kind of peaking all together at the same time, and the bear market kind of emerges when Bitcoin finds its peak. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to spend some time taking a look at Bitcoin's historical peaks and use that as a bit of a reference point as to one of those scenarios unfolding. Okay, so here we have a lot of multicolors, right? We go yellow, blue, purple, orange. These represent years. So every one of these colors is an entire year. Okay, so over here on the far right hand side, we've got the election year here of 2012. We have 1 year after the election is blue, 2 years after the election is purple, 3 years after the election is orange, and then we go back to an election year. Now this is important because obviously there's a correlation between the US election and the bull markets, okay? But we're not really going to focus on the election in this video. Instead, we want to focus in on where historically all those bull markets have kind of come in, right? So the bull market for Bitcoin has always been 1 year after the election. This has happened for 3 out of 3, right? So every single bull market happens to coincide with 1 year after the US election. We can also say it's 1 year after the halving event as well, right? And we can say that the halving event happens to be coinciding with the election year. Now, personally, considering how the Bitcoin halving event itself was really impactful in the early days, but right now is, and going further forward, is less and less impactful. Okay, I believe that there's the actual correlation of the bull market is driven from the US election and monetary policy changes that are usually in and around that event. Okay, so 1 year after the US election, okay, we have a bull market peak. That means that we're going to see a bull market peak for Bitcoin in 2025. Okay, so the question becomes, okay, well, where in 2025, or where would we see these historically, right? So if we take a look at 2013's bull market here for Bitcoin, we can see that there was what are called a double peak. Okay, so we have an initial surge up in April. Okay, and this is actually really important, so we want to make sure that we're aware that this one is a very important date period, and so is what is going on over here, which happens to be November of 2013. So we have April 2013 bull market peak, and we have a November bull market peak here as well. So a double top kind of situation in 2013. So this was actually touching on both of the major points, and we'll get into that in a moment as well. Okay, so that was 2013. Next, we had the 2017. Now, 2017 was different to 2013. There was definitely a moment here in kind of June time Let me grab my pencil, where we did see a bit of a correction. And you can also argue that around March there was a bit of a correction. But ultimately, the bull market peak was up here. And this was, of course, basically the end of November, beginning of December. So we are talking bull market peak being week commencing the 11th of December. So again, we saw that coming in right there, just coming in clutch for the 1 year after the US election. Okay, so that was 2017's bull market. Let's go ahead and take a look at 2021. Well, 2021 was very much like what we saw in 2013. Here we can see that we have an initial peak, we had a correction, and then we had an actual bull market peak. So there's two peaks here. One, we had the $65,000 coming in April of 2021. And of course, then we saw a bull market peak coming up here, coming in on the 8th of November. Okay, so again, double peak like what we saw back in 2013. Okay, so out of the three bullish markets that we have data for here, this is Bitcoin USD on the Bitstamp data, 2 out of 3 of them, actually, yeah, 2 out of 3 of them have double peaks, and 1 of them has a single peak. But the bull market peak, the actual top, is very consistent 3 out of 3 times, and that is that it happens in Q4 of the year after the US election. Okay, so this video isn't about Bitcoin. It's not about Bitcoin's peak. This video, of course, is about various altcoins, and we're going to be talking about the altcoin peaks and things like that. So this is just a baseline. It gives us an understanding that when we see a bull market peak for Bitcoin, it happens to be Q4 of the year after the US election, or Q4 of the bullish market. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump over into some of the other charts. Okay, so now that we have an understanding on Bitcoin and how Bitcoin has kind of behaved and how Q4 was a key moment every single bullish cycle for Bitcoin, does Harmony 1 align with BTC, or is there something else at play? Well, if we zoom out of our data here, we can start taking a look at what happened in that previous bullish market. We had a nice 5-wave move to the upside for Harmony 1, right? And we did see an initial surge and rejection for Harmony 1 up here in this wave 3. This happened to be Q1 of the bullish market of 2021, right? So we can see that this kind of lines up with how Bitcoin was around Q1, Q2 for kind of that initial peak. And we saw obviously a cooling off. So there's a correlation between Bitcoin in this particular time period. And of course, we do see an all-time high for Harmony 1, a little ahead of BTC. This actually is October rather than November. Okay, so it's actually a Q3 bull market peak. Now, there's not a huge amount of data because obviously we don't have data going back to previous bullish markets. But based on BTC usually finishing off in Q4, sorry, and in the case of Harmony 1 finishing a little bit earlier, we might actually take that kind of approach as well going into the new bullish market of 2025. That would mean that instead of kind of waiting for Q4, Harmony 1 would kind of peak maybe towards the end of Q3, because not every single altcoin is going to rally together. Not all of them are going to kind of collapse together either. There's actually something that happens within the altcoin market where money kind of rolls around, right? So for example, some of my expectations would be that Solana rallies up. It's one of the first ones to kind of get major attraction, but money starts rolling out of Solana and it starts going into other altcoins, and those altcoins start to gain traction and start going up into new all-time highs. And if I jump over to 𝗕𝗘𝗪 as another example of this, you can see here that 𝗕𝗘𝗪 had a really nice run to the upside, right? Very aggressive moves to the upside, as you can kind of see here, right? It's a 2-move action rather than a 3-move action. Okay, so three waves rather than 5 waves. And you can see here that this is basically Q2, okay, of the previous bullish market, right? It did not come back up into a new all-time high in Q4. In fact, this here is actually 2022. This is Q1, sorry, of 2022 rather than this being Q2 of 2021, right? So you can see that we have an early bull market peak here for 𝗕𝗔𝗪. And that's something that I think is likely to be consistent with other projects in the space that are seeing these kind of very similar kind of surges, these kind of rapid moves to the upside. Solana is another example of this, where you see this really big move initially, pull back, and then another move to the upside. They have their all-time highs first, but money rolls out of them. Okay, as you can see here, money rolls out of them and it goes into other altcoins. Okay, so in the case that we have here for 𝗲𝗪1, where we have the very impulsive moves, but we have these nice corrections, resetting structures, and then you have those continued moves afterwards, are an indication that this market is probably going to be a little bit more mature, and it's not going to be just kind of ramping up very quickly, all the FOMO kicking in, and then fizzling out and dying off. I would say that we are likely to see a kind of Q3 finish when it comes to 𝗲𝗪1. So when we start thinking about our structures here, we have very similar kind of setups here with how this is moving. It's moving nicely and it's resetting, and then it's going to move again and so forth, right? So for 𝗲𝗪1, I would be kind of putting my expectations to be around Q3 of 2025 when it comes to a bull market peak, a little bit before that of BTC, which I would anticipate being Q4. And I would think about other altcoins like Solana, for example, being the kind of projects that do in fact kind of finish off their kind of bull market peaks much earlier. So money will roll around, and I would expect 𝗲𝗪1 to be one of those altcoins that kind of gets main kind of attraction and kind of its bull market peak around Q3 of 2025. But of course, guys, it's just my thoughts and opinions on the data in the charts as I see it. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, or join us in our free Discord server and we can continue the conversations down there. If you found this somewhat helpful and informative, smash the like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe, and don't forget to check out that video right there. It's not one that you want to miss.